Hi there, this is Brian Choi, Managing Partner and CEO of the Food Institute. We have a special episode of FI Studios today titled Food Industry Icons Remembering Solomon Choi. So today's episode is really about what makes a great leader, and in particular, what made Solomon Choi such a great leader. He is the visionary founder of 16 Handles. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's a mentor and a friend. As we approach the 1 year mark since his passing on June 7th, 2024, we'll explore how his leadership, business acumen, and community first mindset left a lasting impression on the food and beverage industry, and what entrepreneurs everywhere can learn from his incredible journey. Whether you're a business owner, leading a team, or just starting out in the food and beverage industry, Solomon's story has something to teach us all. Hope you enjoyed this conversation in the FI studios. I'd like to first have our guests introduce themselves. First, 𝗟𝗲𝘁 𝗀𝗏 and then Peter Phillips. So, Danny, please introduce yourself and how you're connected with Solomon Choi.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. My name is 𝗟𝗲𝘁 𝗀𝗏. I'm the CEO and founder of the Fuel Brands. I have over 25 years of experience in CPG, wine and spirits, and have consulted with over 100 different organizations. I left my last organization a little over a year ago, and Solomon Choi happened to be not only a very close friend, but my coach, mentor, as well as a business partner. We had a huge amount of passion and drive to disrupt the industry and to do some things really, really outside the box. And just so honored to have been, a big part of his life, and to obviously keep his legacy moving forward.
Hi, I'm Peter Phillips. I'm a co-founder and CEO of 𝗂𝗶𝗱𝗲 Cookies and Some Days Bakery. Solomon and I first started working together with Solomon coming on in an advisory capacity for 𝗂𝗶𝗱𝗲, and he later became my partner at the now rapidly expanding Some Days Bakery chain.
So I'd like to first start off just talking about Solomon as a leader. And when you think about Solomon, what examples come to mind? How would you describe his, his leadership style, him as a leader, his impact on the industry? So maybe Danny, please start us off.
Sure. Look, Solomon was really, he was a leader and a champion for all. Some of the stories he shared with me was specifically around 16 Handles. When he walked in a room, he went behind the register, he gave everyone a high five. He wanted everyone to feel magical as part of that team. He was super inclusive, but he had this incredible laser-focused, relentless work ethic. Always showed up, was always there, but more importantly, outside of a business leader, he was empathetic, thoughtful, strategic, and super intentional with his time. He really checked the boxes of all leaders that you would want to be around or rally around and get behind.
Yeah, I think the first word that comes to mind when describing Solomon is just charisma. He just really had a way about him, had a way with people. I remember we went to the National Restaurant Show together in Chicago, and we were given an award for 𝗂𝗶𝗱𝗲 from Fast Casual's Top 100. And just walk in the room with Solomon, the way that he just connected with everybody in the room, I just knew right away that this is somebody that I wanted to work with. He really had like a desire to learn, passionate as a learner, desire to grow, desire to be better, and that was something that I find very inspiring, because that's something that I try to keep in my daily thought process of how can I improve, how can I get better, how can I make my business better. And I think me and Solomon were really like-minded, and I just found him to be like I said, just incredibly charismatic. Everybody loved Solomon. He knew everybody, and it was really an honor to be around him and work with him. And even today, I'm kind of emotional talking about it. He's definitely very much missed.
Yeah, I could definitely attest to Solomon and how he drew everyone. Whether it's junior people or senior people, industry counterparts, like everyone likes Solomon. I've never heard someone say something negative about Solomon, and passion really describes like how he acted as a person, as an entrepreneur. And I think that's something that I take away, working in the food and beverage industry. Like I want to kind of carry that legacy, that wherever I go, whoever I come across, I want people to have that sense of warmth about me, and that's something that I definitely learned about Solomon. One of the things I want to segue here into is, as an entrepreneur, um, Solomon is one of those few folks that kind of jumped in with both feet, and had the confidence, had the passion, had the drive. You guys know very much well of him coming to New York, setting up shop in the middle of one of the most highly competitive frozen yogurt locations in the world, and for him to outcompete some of the largest peers is something I think it's just absolutely amazing. And so the sheer grit and relentlessness, that I really looked up to Solomon to kind of exemplify that sheer grit and relentlessness is something that I look up to in Solomon. So love for you guys to share your perspective about Solomon and his just drive as an entrepreneur, and what you took away from his journey. So maybe Peter, we could start off with you.
Yeah, I mean, Solomon is just an incredibly passionate entrepreneur. Loved, everything about business. I mean, the guy was invested in pretty much everything, and actively trying to invest in more things on a daily basis. And, that just goes to his passion for the industry, for new technology, anything that you could, competitive advantage that you can get running a business. Solomon was looking out for it. That was one of the areas that he really helped me with, was helping advise me on a lot of the new and emerging technologies that are out there to make the running a restaurant business easier. And that was one of the things that I really looked up to with Solomon. And like you said, the grit. I mean, his story is unbelievable. To come from California and build the 16 Handles brand without really any idea what he was doing, is truly just a testament to his work ethic and his desire to do something with his life, and he accomplished it. And, I am similar in him, and we both like to jump in with 2 feet. And I remember coming to him one day and telling him about some days. And I asked him to be my partner and make an investment in some days. And I think he said yes before I finished my sentence. And that was just, the kind of entrepreneur he was, and the kind of man that he was, a man very much grounded in his faith. And I think, that's really, the best way to understand Solomon is a man grounded in his faith.
Great, Danny. Anything you'd like to add?
Absolutely. Couple of words to describe him. He always actually called himself a real mensch. Everyone loved him. He was contagious. His energy was incredible. But look, he was hyper focused, driven, relentless on owning that customer journey. Myself and him, every day we would go back and forth on deal flow, investment opportunities, co-invest, co-advise. So we were looking to really engage ourselves in things that would change the future, right? He was an innovator and a real strategic leader. This was March of last year. This was one of the most epic moments. So as Peter alluded to, he came here 2018, bootstrapped his entire organization. And look, he opened up shop within a 2-block radius of his competition. Listen, that takes a lot of guts and hard work, grit, and hustle. But more importantly, he provided a much better epic experience. Solomon loved going out and connecting live with people. So, not only did we have our weekly meetups and calls, but we would go out and have some fun. And we considered ourselves part of the OG. That picture was taken when myself, him, we bumped into Maveron, Dan Levitin, who is Howard Schultz's right-hand man. He actually invested in Solomon's competitor way back in the day. And it was so important for Solomon to go over to him. And he goes, Danny, come with me. I cannot wait to get a reaction. And Dan could not have been a bigger gentleman. He looked over at Sol and he said, you know what? I made the wrong investment. I should have deployed capital into 16 Handles. We took a great picture. We had some cocktails. So again, even with his competitors, he was always kind, empathetic. And more importantly, he always had that tenacity and desire to win at all times.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really resonated with me is his attention to that consumer. I think he understood the consumer so much better than some of his larger competitors, and so he was very much an entrepreneur that was on the ground, that spoke to the customer, listened to the comments, especially on social media, and and I think that's how, he really was able to connect with the consumer, much better than the competitors. And so, yeah, just really amazing to see someone who, like Peter said, jumps in with 2 feet and understands how to connect with the consumer at a level that really is, incomparable to some of the larger competition out there. Um, so one of the other aspects I think it's really interesting to talk about is um, Solomon's focus on social media. And I think, Peter, you're, given, your endeavors, at Chip City Cookies, you you were able to really kind of like, in a similar way, connect with consumer on social media. And so maybe talk to us a little bit about Solomon's thinking in leveraging social media as a tool for driving traffic, and maybe share a little bit of experience of how that's worked out with Chip Cities.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that we would constantly talk about is, you need to keep a direct line right to your consumer, and you need to continue to find new ways to innovate and kind of, keep your consumer interested, because we do live in a very competitive landscape, and there are new things popping up every day, and you need to stay on, on the cutting edge, if you're going to stay relevant. And I remember, one of Solomon's proudest achievements was how he navigated, everything with his business during COVID. And how he was able to create this brand partnership, I believe, with Oatly, and roll out a line of oat milk based frozen yogurt treats throughout the 16 Handles chain. And I just remember that was like one of the first lunches we had when we decided to start working together. And he was telling me about his accomplishments with that and how he was able to navigate that difficult time. And I think that was just something that we really connected on, because me, very similar to Solomon, we bootstrapped the first Chip City location with $70,000, and years later we did raise quite a bit of money from Enlightened Hospitality. But I think when you start off as an entrepreneur and you're in that mindset where you don't really have a fallback or a fail-safe, and there's no piggy bank to continue to draw from, it creates a grittiness and scrappiness as an entrepreneur that will carry you for forever. And till this day, I always try to keep the same principles in terms of how we run the business in place, because it's very easy to get loose with your money, and I find that to be not a successful strategy for longevity. So we try to keep very small business principles in place even as the company grows, and I think that's suited us and allowed us to weather a lot of difficult times that we faced in recent years with supply chain issues, with commodity prices fluctuating all over the place. Any little misstep with the economy can put a business under if you're not prepared for it, and if you don't have protections in place. So that was something that Solomon and I would talk on regularly, something that we were both accomplished in achieving. And that was social media is just been really the engine that drives our business. We have millions of impressions on a monthly basis, and we invest tremendously in content creation, and even with our new venture, Sunday's Bakery, we only have 2 bakeries open, another 3 under construction, and we have tremendous engagement with a still relatively small footprint. We've had one reel go over 6 million views. We have over 1 million impressions monthly on a relatively smaller account now. Chips at over 5 million monthly impressions. And that's the way that we're able to keep communicating with the consumer, keep bringing out new ideas, the way that we're able to highlight our brand partnerships and collaborations. And that's what keeps people excited.
Great. Danny, anything that you'd like to add on the social media engagement and really using that as a vehicle for driving growth?
Yeah, I mean, he really, that was his secret sauce. Building his personal brand. And I'll never forget, he actually shared with me an agency that he was working with, he was always creating disruptive content, and he had a mass following. But I'll never forget the time that, I'm like, "You're everywhere, man. Like, I don't know how you're doing this, Sal." And he goes to me, "Danny, I just filmed for like the last 3 hours, and I had to bring 4 different outfits." So he was able to push out a lot of really, intentional content to different audiences. And was really strategic. And look, the other part of it was he really did take, and as an entrepreneur, Peter could speak to it, is he really took calculated risk. That was something I really envied. When I left a long-standing corporate position, look, he was the guy that was in my back corner. He was my biggest fan, my biggest cheerleader, and helped me really get to that next level and give me the confidence that I needed and that I was looking for. And he genuinely cared. When I say calculated risk, obviously coming here with nothing and building this out next to his competition, but also in the height of COVID, we would get together quite a bit. And I'll never forget, he was able to lock up an incredible lease right next to the M&M store in Times Square, at the right opportunity. And look, the world was in a very different place. Solomon would go into that burning building, but he always saw the light at the end of the tunnel. And that was just fascinating for me to really watch him, as he was able to get through any challenging environment or conflict.
Yeah, this was definitely great points. One other aspect that I thought was quite unique about Solomon is that he would attend all these shows just to know what's happening on the ground, talk to the competition, seeing what new products. So whether that was Expo West or the restaurant show or some of the more like the regional shows, he was traveling all the time. And so maybe Danny, like, what impact did that have on Solomon to understand like how to navigate, 16 handles, or see what's up and coming, especially from an investment perspective? Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. I think my relationship with him was so much about going out and having fun, but more importantly, getting deals done and business done together. I think one of the things I really envied about him at these shows was, look, he wasn't the guy that sat in the ivory tower. He was super hands-on. There was no ego. Similar to Peter, running his organization with his entrepreneurial spirit, Solomon as well got behind it. I'll never forget the opening day of Some Days. He's pouring coffees, he's serving customers. He really wanted to understand the customer, and he was just relentlessly focused on that. And I think when he attended these shows, to him, he would talk to anybody. There was no ego, but more importantly, everyone was so comfortable talking to him. He used to call himself the CEO. And we used to joke around everywhere we went, even during the height of COVID. I'll never forget, my own children, Lexi and Blake, looked at him as a celebrity. On the height of COVID, he ended up sending us a ton of swag, T-shirts and hats and all sorts of stuff. But I think when we went to these shows and he was out there, he wanted to test, pilot, learn. He was always the first guy to have his hand up and really test and learn. And if he really liked the technology, he would say, look, if this can make my business more efficient and effective, let me incorporate it into my own organization. And when he got really excited about it, he was like, you know what? Maybe there's an opportunity for me to be a strategic advisor. Maybe I could deploy my own capital. So he really truly put his money where his mouth was. I also, reaped a lot of the benefits by learning alongside of him. So again, I mentioned the word coach, mentor, but really, just a wonderful individual and friend. He's sorely missed. Life is obviously very, very different. I think of him every day, and I try to live the values that he lived. It's so important for me to continue his legacy and share the stories about him. So yeah, I mean, it was just incredible what he was able to do. And if you look at his social media sites, they're still up, whether it's Java Brands, whether it's 16 Handles. It's unbelievable, the content and how he still connects with people today. So yeah.
Yeah, it's great. You mentioned values, Danny. And Peter, you mentioned that Solomon really was a man of faith. You know, so what can we learn from Solomon in terms of like how he conducted himself, not just as an entrepreneur, but as someone who was invested in the church, invested in the community, and also investing in friends. Anything that that comes to mind there, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about, one of the standout conversations, that really comes to mind when I think of Solomon was, I remember we were having dinner one night with another one of his friends, and the topic of faith came up, and that was when I really understood, how much his faith meant to him. And I think as an entrepreneur, I think when you're able to throw your hands up and understand that there are a lot of things that are outside of your control in life, I think it's a very humbling experience. It's also a very freeing experience, because the reality of it is you could do everything right running your business every single day, and there are just things that are going to happen that are outside of your control. And when you have that faith, it builds a level of resilience in you. And I think ultimately that's like the number one thing that you need to be a successful entrepreneur, is to be resilient, to not get bogged down by the bad times, to be able to continue to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and move forward. And Solomon epitomized that. He is that man, and nothing was going to stop him. Nothing was going to get him down. Nothing was going to stop him from achieving his goals. Nothing was going to hold him back. And that was something that we really bonded over.
Yeah, what really amazed me is even after his successful exit a couple years ago, he was still the same guy. he, he wasn't like flaunting his wealth or just taking. He was still working with brands and doing what he loved to do, and I think that aspect of faith really helped ground him, and like you said, Pete, it helped develop that resilience. So that's something that's really awesome. Danny, you're fairly close with Solomon's family, and what can you tell us about Solomon as a father, as a husband, and anything that you'd want to share there?
Yeah, look, he lit up. Work was work, and he was relentless on the amount of hours. That he wasn't a 9 to 5 guy. He would work 100 hours a week, but he was really intentional with his time. And when he spoke about Hannah, Joshua, Jubilee, he lit up. He had that side to him where family was so important to him. And he would always talk to me like, "Hey, we're going." When he was away with his family, I know several months prior to his passing, he was out in the Hamptons. A year prior to that, he was at the Baha Mar with his family in the Bahamas. So he really made sure to have that work-life balance. And when he was home with his family, he was all in. He didn't let anything distract him. So like that's really hard to do as an entrepreneur, to really separate your work. Obviously, it absorbs a lot of your time, but just an incredible, loving, husband, father. His children are absolutely just beautiful. And I got to see them several months ago, and it's tough. I look at his son. They were actually in my backyard several months back on a trampoline, and I was able to pick him up, and I literally felt like I was holding Solomon. The amount of similarities are just wild, but he was just such a great person. You don't really, I always knew how much I absolutely adored and loved him, but obviously it's emotional with him passing. You don't get him back, but you could live, his memories and share all his stories with him. But one thing I took away is, I tell my children the same thing: treat people the way you want to be treated. He was so respectful to everyone, and it didn't matter, whether you were a janitor or a CEO or a chairman of an organization. He treated everyone equally, the same way, and he was always consistent. And that matters, right? We live in such a volatile environment. It's so competitive, and sometimes you just have to take a step back, and things always work out. Personally, I owe so much to him. The joke was, he was my mentor and coach as I was building out the fuel brands, and we would spend hours and hours together, and we were looking to build out some other things in the next year. And he goes, "Danny," I said, "What do I owe you?" He goes, "I'm going to charge you. You're not paying me yet." And I always wanted to write him that check because I never like to owe anyone money. But he was just that guy that was he would give you the shirt off his back, and he would do anything for his family. So I don't think there'll ever be another Solomon out there. from what I can see.
As the final question for both of you guys, there are a ton of entrepreneurs out there that want to learn what it means to be a successful entrepreneur. If there's one thing based on Solomon's life that you would share to entrepreneurs out there, what would that be? Maybe Peter, we'll start with you.
Yeah, never give up, you know, and just keep putting your best foot forward every day. Yeah, just to talk about too with Solomon, with his family. I mean, his romance with Hannah was a whirlwind. You know, he met her, he knew he wanted to marry her. I don't know the exact dates, but it was very quick, and quickly settled down and started a family. And he just knew right away that was, you know, that was the woman for him. The same way he knew right away to you know, to start his business and make the move to New York from the West Coast. So I think that's, you know, that's the best advice that I can give to any aspiring entrepreneurs. You know, follow your passions. Don't be afraid to fail early and often. You know, and just keep trying. And I think if you have that attitude and you don't let yourself get defeated, you will be successful.
You know, look, I think being present and showing up. Look, it's great to be on Zoom calls, but what I learned from him is he was the people's champion. Everyone loved him, but he knew how to execute at such a high level. And I think, you know, showing up, networking, being kind, being empathetic to people, but more importantly, trying different things. If you're not learning, if you're stuck, go out there and create your own path. You know, look, he's taught me so much. You know, there's so many areas in which, you know, I spent time, whether it's, you know, learning digital capabilities, B2B, D2C. These were all areas of opportunity. And for me, it helped me to get where I am today. I'm so grateful for him and his legacy and what he's been able to do for me and my family. So, you know, I'm indebted to him. It's been probably one of the roughest years of my lifetime, personally losing him. But, you know, I take all those stories and all my experiences I've had with him. They stay with me in a sacred place, and I know he's watching all of us right now, and would be really proud. And Peter, I know, you know, after 16 handles, he had told me all about some days, the story about how, you know, he's like, look, I don't want to be an operator, and he had told me this story how he said, no, I want you to be a co-founder and a partner with me, and he was so ecstatic and excited. I've been to that location in the story at least a dozen times. And look, it's exciting what you're building, but I will tell you, I know you actually had built out a scholarship as well. It was just incredible how exuberated and excited he was to build out some days with you. That's one of the hot topics he had talked about frequently. And it sounds like you're looking, I think he had mentioned 25 locations at one point. Sounds like you're looking to take it to a whole new level, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it's been tough this past year. You know, I was so excited to embark on this journey with Solomon. I really found like I really felt like I found a partner. You know, that really you know was you know, we just complemented each other extremely well. And when we were in the room together, when we were approaching challenges together, I mean, you could see it. We just really worked in harmony. And you know, I'm really like disappointed that I won't be able to, you know, to share this experience with him because you know, it was like so early in the journey, and it's like hard to like really wrap my head around what happened and how it happened still. But I can tell you that, you know, this like lit a fire under me, like big time, you know, because now I want to do it for Solomon. And you know, it's I'm really grateful for the time we spent together. I do wish, you know, that there was more time that we did get to spend together. And you know, the one big takeaway that I have, you know, from this whole experience is, you know, life is precious, and we really need to be present in the moment, appreciate every moment, because you just don't know like what's coming for you. And you know, I have a picture of Solomon by my desk, and I think about that daily in my actions as not only as a business owner, but as a father and as a husband. And you know, I just want to make sure that, you know, I live every day to the fullest, and I look back with no regret. And I can definitely tell you that Solomon, you know, is always going to be in my heart, and like I said, always going to be in my actions. And I'm really excited to build up some days into something huge in his honor. So.
Well, that's great. You can't, and better than that, making each day count. As well said. So, Danny, Peter, thank you so much for spending time with the Food Institute as we come in on the 1 year of Solomon's passing. This has been meaningful for me as a fan of Solomon and having learned so much about what it means to be an entrepreneur and staying true to one's values. So with that, again, I appreciate you guys both. And as we close today, don't miss the opportunity to learn directly from Solomon himself. We did a recording a couple of years ago on 𝗂𝗏 Replay on how he disrupted the frozen yogurt space. The link will be in the description of this episode. So with that, for more stories, industry insights, visit our website, foodinstitute.com. I'm Brian Choi. Thanks for watching.